Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk to you today about a topic that is dear to my heart, and that is the topic of gratitude at work. So it's only appropriate that I start this morning's presentation with two important thank yous. Thank you to the President of Tec Milenio University, Dr. Hector Escamilla, and thank you to the Director of the Institute of Happiness and Wellbeing, Dr. Enrique Tamés. I have about 50 minutes to convince a very large group of business leaders of the importance of the topic of gratitude at work. Gratitude is often seen as a sort of warm, fuzzy, soft, maybe unnecessary, unimportant component of the workplace. And what I hope to do in my presentation is to share with you some evidence, some practice, some stories that help to convince you that gratitude is not a warm, fuzzy, unnecessary component of the workplace, that it's critically necessary in the workplace, that it's something that we can make concrete, we can make practical, and we can measure so that we can understand the impact of gratitude in the workplace. So I hope that at the end of today's presentation, you walk away with a clearer understanding of what gratitude is, of how we can measure it in the workplace, and how we can improve it in the workplace. But most importantly, I hope you walk away convinced of the reason for why we need more gratitude in the workplace. So what do I mean when I'm talking about gratitude? What I've done is I've taken two quotes that have been provided by my colleagues in the science of positive psychology, well-known researchers in gratitude, to help us get a sort of, it's a very big group, to help us get a shared understanding of what gratitude is. So very simple definition. Gratitude is a worldview. It's our ability to notice and appreciate the good things in our life. So there's two aspects to that definition. The first aspect is that we have to notice the good things in our life. And the second aspect is that we have to appreciate those good things. So often when we miss an opportunity for gratitude, it's because one of those two elements has broken down. Perhaps we're so busy, we have so many things on our plate, we're so task-focused that we fail to notice the good things that are happening around us. Maybe sometimes we notice, but we fail to appreciate because we start to take those things for granted, or we expect those things to occur in our life. So gratitude really simply is about noticing and appreciating the good things that are occurring in our life. That's the first definition. The second definition I think is important to include because the second definition is more of the relational definition. It's an acknowledgement that we have received something of value from someone else. So this is one of the interesting things about gratitude. You can experience gratitude just by yourself in the moment. You can notice and appreciate the feeling of sunshine on your back, or the smell of coffee, or the sound of a child laughing. But a second component of gratitude is that it's relational. This is one of the reasons why I feel it's so important in a workplace, because a workplace is made up of many, many people contributing their parts to the overall outcome of a workplace, be it a school, be it a product, be it a new process. So the second definition is important to us because it's about acknowledging that we have received something of value from someone else. And so it's not just an emotion that we feel. Gratitude is also an action, because in that acknowledgement, we engage in action. We thank the other person. And we either just thank them verbally, so that's a verbal action, or we engage in some sort of reciprocal behaviour. Maybe a couple of weeks later we assist someone on a project that they're working on. Or maybe we see that someone's a little bit low on energy and we bring them a cup of coffee. This is an action of gratitude. It's an act of gratitude. So this is, when I'm talking about gratitude over the next 50 minutes, I'm talking about your ability to notice and appreciate the good things in life, but we're going to focus in on the workplace. And I'm also talking about your capacity to acknowledge that you have received something from value from someone else. So before I get into the workplace, gratitude in the workplace, I just want to share with you some of the research around the importance of gratitude for you as an individual. And gratitude has become a hot topic of research inquiry in my field, in the field of positive psychology. And it turns out that the science is supporting what we all intuitively know, that gratitude is a key ingredient for a good life. Very well-known professors in the field, Professor Chris Peterson and Professor Martin Seligman, who really were sort of two of the forefathers launching the field of positive psychology, conducted a large scale in the US looking at what are the top character strengths that predict a person's life satisfaction. And what they found in that study is that hope, zest and gratitude are the three top predictors of life satisfaction. So having a sense of hope for a positive future, having zest. Kim Cameron has just talked to us about the importance of energy in the workplace, positive energizers. So having hope, having zest or energy. But the third one is gratitude. Gratitude is one of the top three predictors of life satisfaction. And that makes sense to me because gratitude is the ability to notice and appreciate the good things that are happening in your life. So if you have a high capacity for gratitude, if you are noticing and appreciating the good things in life, you're obviously going to be more satisfied in your life. The second study comes from, not from the United States, but from the United Kingdom. And again, this was a large-scale study looking at the contribution of gratitude to happiness. And in their study, they found that 18.5% of a person's happiness was predicted by their gratitude, their capacity to notice and appreciate the good things in their life. And again, that makes sense. If you have a high capacity to notice and appreciate the good things, obviously you're going to be happier in your life. But 18.5%, that's a big slice of the pie. That's almost 20% of your happiness coming from this one emotion, the emotion of gratitude. And then the third study, again, back in the US with Robert Emmons, Professor Robert Emmons, who is very well known in the field of gratitude. In this particular study, he invited people to be part of a gratitude intervention where these adults went through a series of exercises that were designed to enhance their gratitude, to help them become better at noticing and appreciating the positives in their life. And what he found with that group of people was that over time, they became 25% happier as a result of increasing their gratitude. So these three studies in and of themselves tell us that gratitude is, well, in psychology we refer to the psychological potency of gratitude. We say it's a very potent ingredient. It's a very important ingredient to life. Gratitude breathes life into us, into our families, into our workplaces. And I think of it as a special ingredient. If you think about baking bread and you take the four basic ingredients of bread, so you take water, you take salt, you take flour, and you take yeast. I think of gratitude as the yeast. So you can make bread without yeast, and it's palatable, but it's not as nice without the yeast. The yeast is what breathes the life into it. It's what makes it rise. It's what makes it fluffy. And that's how I see gratitude. Gratitude is this key ingredient that if we don't have it, we've sort of got this flat, dense bread, this flat, dense life. It's still okay. It's still palatable. We can eat it, but it doesn't have the life in it. So gratitude is a key ingredient for a good life. Let's explore the science a little bit further in terms of what gratitude does for you as an individual before we move into what gratitude does in a workplace context. So breaking the benefits of gratitude down even further, I've put it into three buckets for you. And those three buckets look at the psychological benefits of gratitude, the physical benefits of gratitude, and then the relationship benefits of gratitude. And it turns out that gratitude is a key factor in all three of those things. Gratitude is a key factor in your psychological health. And lots of research now to show that gratitude enhances your ability to be resilient and to bounce back from life's challenges and life's adversities. And again, that makes sense. If you think about the definition of gratitude, when you are going through a hard time, even in the darkest of times, if you can find something, just one thing, to feel grateful for, if you can notice and appreciate just one good thing, or acknowledge the help of someone else who is helping you out in that dark time, it builds your resilience. It gives you hope to go forward. It's also significantly related to optimism. So people who have higher levels of gratitude also have higher levels of optimism. People who are able to notice and appreciate the good things in their life right now have an optimistic tendency. They feel like life is good now and life is going to be good in the future. It doesn't just help us improve positive psychological states, it's also a critical ingredient in reducing negative psychological states. So again, a lot of researchers now have looked at the role of gratitude in reducing depression, and gratitude is now being used as a complementary part of traditional psychological therapies that are used to reduce depression in a person's life. And it's also been inversely correlated with bitterness and resentment. So I dare you to feel gratitude and bitterness at exactly the same time. You can't do it. It's very hard to be noticing and appreciating the good things in life and also feeling resentful and bitter for the things that are missing in your life. So the research shows the more that we build up our capacity to notice and appreciate the good things, the less bitter we become, the less resentful we become. And I want to sort of echo what Kim Cameron has just said in speaking before me, that gratitude is an emotion, but it's also a practice, it's a habit, it's a behaviour that you can learn. You can teach yourself to get better at noticing and appreciating the good things in life. You can teach yourself to think more about how you acknowledge and thank someone else when they've given you something of value. So gratitude is important for our mental health, but it's also important for our physical health. And researchers have now shown that gratitude does a host of things for our physical health. It supports our immune system. It helps people who are managing chronic pain. So researchers have worked with samples of people, for example, who have muscular neural disorders and other chronic pain initiatives. So they can't actually do anything medically about the person's pain. And researchers have been looking at, is there something psychologically that we can do that can help people to better manage their pain? And one of the researchers has looked at this role of gratitude. And what they found is that these people who are in chronic pain conditions, when they train themselves to notice and appreciate the good things in their life and to acknowledge and feel thankful for the medical care they're receiving, their family support, their friends' support, that in those moments of experiencing gratitude, it takes their attention away from their pain. So it helps us physically as well. It supports our immune system. There was a fascinating study done in the United States with new college students. And the researchers divided the college students into two different groups, and these were all brand new students coming into college, living away from home for the first time. Half of the college students were asked for their first semester of university, at the end of every day, please log on to this online system and tell me three things that you feel grateful for about your experience transitioning into this new phase of your life, which we know is a very difficult phase of life. We know it's a phase where young adults can experience a lot of mental distress. There's a lot, they're learning a lot, they're away from home, new friendship groups, the rigour of study and those kinds of things. The second group were asked to also log online every day and just sort of describe their day. And what happened over the course of the first semester is that the group of new college students who were asked every day to reflect on their day with gratitude visited the university doctor less, reported less headaches, less stomach aches, and had less symptoms of cold as a result. So gratitude supports us physically as well as psychologically, a fascinating study done in the United Kingdom looking at the role of gratitude in sleep. And this one particularly caught my attention because I suffer from insomnia, and I've had insomnia for decades, and I always struggle to get to sleep. My mind races, and I'm always thinking about things that I didn't get done that day and the things I need to do tomorrow, and I drive my husband bonkers because we turn the light off and then he goes to sleep straight away. I don't know how he does that. I'm so jealous, but he does. And I lie there thinking, oh, I still need to do this, I haven't done this, this problem hasn't been solved, what am I going to do about this? And then eventually my brain gets full of thoughts. I tell myself, that's okay, I'll remember in the morning, but then I get nervous that I'll forget. So I flick the light on, and I have a notepad beside my bed, and so I write it on the notepad. And then the same process happens, and about the third time I flick the light on, I get this grunt from the other side of the bed, like, what are you doing? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. So this particular study really caught my eye, the fact that gratitude helps us sleep better. It was a large-scale study done in the United Kingdom, and these psychologists looked at what they called pre-sleep cognition. Pre-sleep cognition is a fancy term that psychologists... I'm a psychologist, so I can say this. We like to use sort of fancy terms, but actually pre-sleep cognition, it just means what you were thinking about before you went to sleep. We call it pre-sleep cognition because it sounds more scientific. So these researchers took thousands of adults and they asked them to tell us what you were thinking about just before you went to sleep. And then they also asked the participants, how well did you sleep? How quickly did you go off to sleep? How long did you sleep for? And when you woke up in the morning, how refreshed did you feel? And what they found is a very significant pattern that people who go to bed with thoughts of gratitude, people who have grateful pre-sleep cognition, so doing the opposite to what I did, rather than going to bed and thinking of all the things that haven't been done and all the problems that haven't been fixed and focusing on the negative, people who went to bed thinking about the good things that had occurred during their day, slept better, slept longer, went to sleep more quickly, and woke up feeling more refreshed. Now that one study has changed my sleeping patterns. And I read that study about maybe a decade ago, maybe 8 years ago. And so now every night I go to bed and I mentally rehearse my day. I have a look at what has happened during my day, and I go to sleep thinking grateful thoughts. I go to sleep reliving the hug that I got from my daughter, or the funny joke that my son told at dinner, or the nice conversation that I'd had with someone. And yes, the other thoughts float through my head, and I say, that's okay. I can deal with that tomorrow. Right now, I just want to experience gratitude. And my insomnia is gone. I'm not waking up writing little notes on the bedside anymore. So gratitude is very potent. It's very powerful. It helps us psychologically. It helps us physically. It also helps us in terms of our relationships. So gratitude is a key relational ingredient. And lots of research to show that when you are in a grateful mood, you are more pro-social, you're more likely to help people when you're feeling the experience of gratitude compared to when you're not. It's one of the number one predictors of success in a marriage. And one of the number one reasons why people leave a marriage, one of the number one reasons that people who get divorced give for leaving the marriage is they say, I felt unappreciated, I felt taken for granted, I felt that my partner wasn't seeing me anymore. So I know that I'm here today for a Positive Organisations Conference, and I know that I'm speaking to a group of industry leaders, but what I invite you to do is go home on the weekend and notice and appreciate your partner. Say thank you to them. Okay, so these are some of the benefits to you as an individual in becoming more grateful, but I want to focus the rest of my talk on gratitude at work. And I really love this quote by Gavin and Mason, that in order to have a good life, people must work in good organisations. And if you think about it, we invest a lot in work. We spend a lot of time at work, 8 to 10 hour days, 5 to 6 days a week. We invest our time, we invest our emotional energy, we invest our identity. There's a lot that we invest in work. So if we want to have a good life and we're working in a workplace that is not a good workplace, it's a significant detractor from that. So it's a very simple quote. In order to have a good life, people must work in good organisations. And that's why I feel so happy and grateful that I've had the opportunity to come to Mexico and to speak to you about this topic, because you're all here because you obviously agree with this quote. You've all invested your time and your money and your energy to come along to this conference to learn about how it is that we create good organisations. And of course, it's going to be no surprise to you that I say gratitude is a critical ingredient in creating a good organisation. So let's have a look at how much gratitude we do have in organisations. This very large-scale study, 35,000 people, and this is a very fascinating study to me because the researchers asked the same question of the leaders as they asked of the employees. They went to the leaders and they said, tell us as a leader what you think is the most important thing for your employees. And the leaders said, the most important thing for my employees, the thing that my employees want the most is a higher salary. Then the researchers went to the employees and asked the same question. Please tell us what you think is the most important thing for you in the workplace. There are 3 things that the employees said, but guess what the first one was? The first one was not a higher salary. The first one was, I want to feel appreciated at work. I want to feel fully appreciated. I want my boss and the more senior leaders and the people around me to notice and appreciate the good things that I do at work. So this, to me, is a fascinating study, and what it suggests is that we have what I'm calling a gratitude gap at work. That many leaders in the workplace don't understand the profound importance of gratitude. It's overlooked. It's seen as a sort of unnecessary, warm, fuzzy concept that doesn't really have any relevance. And yet this very large study is saying to us that it is one of the most important things, more important than even getting a higher salary. So we have a gratitude gap at work, but it gets even more interesting because that study was looking at the gap between what the leaders think employees want and what the employees want themselves. But this next study I'm about to show you complicates things because this wasn't about the gap between leaders and employees. This was just asking employees about their experience and the value they place on gratitude. It was a study done in the US with over 2,000 employees. Almost all of those 2,000 employees, when asked the question, do you think gratitude is important in the workplace? Almost all of them said yes. Gratitude is important in the workplace. But here's where it gets complicated and interesting. In the second question, when they were asked, how often do you express or display gratitude at work? Only 10% said, I regularly express gratitude at work. So they were all saying it's important, but only 10% were actually putting it into action. 60% said, I rarely display gratitude at work, or I never display gratitude at work. 60% of the people who've said, I think gratitude is important, never display it, or display it maybe once a year. So again, this gratitude gap gets more complicated. Why is it that employers are saying, I think it's a good idea, but I'm not prepared to do it myself? And why is it that leaders aren't recognising it's important when employees are saying, this is the number one most important thing for me? Well, these are fascinating questions. You can see the statistics below that there are a couple of barriers to gratitude. And one of them in this particular study is that 35% of people said that they believe that if they express gratitude, it will lead co-workers to take advantage of them. That because there's this there can be this sense of indebtedness that is tied to gratitude. So when I say to someone, thank you for doing that, that may be interpreted as me saying, now that you've done something for me, I owe you. I have to do something back in return. And so this is this sense of, well, if I thank someone, they might take advantage of me. They might ask me to do something in return. And 18% of leaders said that they felt they would be perceived as weak if they thanked their employees. So this makes gratitude, I think, a very interesting, sort of complicated thing. It's not always a positive story, and I'm going to pick back up on that with some of my own research a little bit later on. Now, we've all heard of attention deficit disorder. Well, what I think is happening in workplaces is a different type of deficit disorder. Instead of ADD, we've got GDD. So the question is why? I mean, research is showing us that it's important, that everyone says it's important, that leaders aren't recognising it, employees want it, but they want someone else to do it. So they want to be thanked, but they're not prepared to thank themselves, because if they do, it might mean that they owe someone a favour, or it might be perceived as weakness. So the question is, why do we have gratitude deficit disorder in our workplace? And I could explain this to you scientifically, and it would take about 10 minutes, but I found a beautiful cartoon that I think sums it up in one picture. So I'm going to let this cartoonist explain to us why it is that our workplaces are suffering from gratitude deficit disorder. So, we try and practice an attitude of gratitude, but we end up having a sentiment of resentment. So let's think about that for a moment. Let's think about how we feel when we experience ingratitude. And there's been lots of work for thousands of years, not just from psychologists, from theologists, from philosophers, from sociologists, talking about what happens when gratitude is missing, not just in the workplace, but in every relationship. Immanuel Kant, who's a well-known philosopher, he viewed ingratitude as the essence of vileness and wickedness. He said it's one of the worst things you can do to someone else, to be ungrateful. It's vile, it's wicked. David Hume, who's a sociologist, says, of all the crimes that a human creature is capable of, the most horrid is ingratitude. And St. Ignatius of Loyola, ingratitude is the most abominable of sins, for it is forgetting of the graces, blessings and benefits received. As such, it is the cause, the beginning and the origin of all sins and misfortune. So a lot of people have talked about the harm of ingratitude. What I would like you to do now is just reflect for a moment on a time in your life where you have gone out of your way to do something, to help someone, and you have received ingratitude. You have been on the receiving end of ingratitude. Just take a moment to reflect on that, and then if you feel comfortable, turn to the person next to you and share with them, what does it feel like to be on the receiving end of ingratitude? And when you finish, I'm going to ask, if you feel confident, just to call out one-word answers of what it feels like to be on the receiving end of ingratitude. Okay, have a chat with your partner. Okay, thank you everyone. This is a little bit of an experiment because it is such a big group, so you may not want to call out. But if anyone feels brave enough to call out just a one-word response, what does it feel like for you to be on the receiving end of ingratitude? You feel sad. Yeah, what else? You feel angry. Anything else? You feel disappointed, you feel used. Maybe one more. You feel that your ability hasn't been recognised and unloved, aggrieved. Thank you. I didn't think that exercise would work, but it did. So when you're on the receiving end of ingratitude, we feel sad, we feel disappointed, we feel angry, we feel unrecognised, we feel unloved, we feel aggrieved. What we feel is unseen. We feel that the person has not acknowledged, they have not recognised us. And that is one of the most painful experiences that any human being can experience, to be invisible, to feel unseen, unvalued, unworthy, unrecognised. That's an intensely painful experience to have, because we are a social tribe. We are wired to be connected to other people, and we want to know that I am part of the tribe, that I'm adding value to the tribe. So when we're on the receiving end of ingratitude, whether the other person knows it or not, it triggers this very intense and deep response, which is a response of feeling unseen, unworthy, unvaluable. And what that leads to is the responses that you shared with me. You feel sad, you feel angry, you feel aggrieved, you feel misunderstood, you feel used. And I think this is important, because what we've seen in the research is that there is a gratitude deficit disorder in workplaces. There's a gratitude gap, that it's not occurring as much as it should. And I don't think that we're doing it because we're not doing it deliberately. Leaders aren't going into the workplace and saying, I am going to strategically create a culture of ingratitude. Employees aren't working into the workplace every day and saying, today I vow to be ungrateful. You know, we're not doing it deliberately, but it's occurring, and I think it's occurring because we're not placing the weight, we're not understanding the importance of gratitude to work. So what I want to do for the rest of my talk, the remaining of my talk, is to share with you some of the science and then some practical tips. Some of the science to sort of further convince you of the importance of bringing gratitude into the workplace, and then some tips on, okay, so yes, Lee, you've convinced me, I do want to bring gratitude more into my workplace. How do I go about doing that? So we're going to end on some practical tips. What I've done is the research on gratitude at work is reasonably new. There's not a large amount on it, so I've pulled most of it together in this one slide, and then I'm going to share with you 3 of my own studies on gratitude in the workplace. But essentially, the research on gratitude in the workplace can be, I've put it into a 2x2 dimension. The first one is whether you are the person at work who is feeling gratitude compared to the person at work who is receiving gratitude. And then the second dimension is looking at things that gratitude increases at work and things that gratitude decreases at work. So let's have a look. If we have a look at people who feel gratitude at work, who notice and appreciate the good things at work, who acknowledge other people, who have that lovely emotion of experiencing gratitude at work, what it does is it increases a whole lot of good things for employees at work. It increases their sense of job satisfaction. It increases their sense of corporate social responsibility. So that's looking at how responsible, being a good citizen at work, going above and beyond your job description. It increases their sense of accomplishment. It increases their sense of having a meaningful life orientation. So feeling gratitude at work leads to a whole host of other benefits. On the other side, if we feel gratitude at work, it decreases some things. But luckily, it decreases the things that we want to be decreased. So you can see up on the slide, it decreases burnout, it decreases emotional exhaustion, and it decreases this phenomenon known as depersonalization. So again, this is psychologists using fancy words, but depersonalization is this experience of feeling like I can't be my true self at work. I can't be my own person at work. I'm depersonalized. When people feel gratitude at work, they're less depersonalized. They feel like they can bring more of their own person into the workplace. So there are the benefits of feeling the emotion of gratitude at work. But what about the benefits of being on the receiving end when people thank you at work? Well, it turns out there are a host of benefits there too. And again, if we look at what it increases, you can see on the slide that feeling gratitude at work, it increases a person's sense of feeling supported in the workplace. It increases a sense of work engagement. People who are on the receiving end of being thanked and feeling that others are grateful for what they do say that they're more engaged in what they do. It makes them feel more appreciated, and it gives them a sense of self-efficacy, a greater sense of confidence and mastery in their job, that they can do their job well. Feeling gratitude not only increases some positive benefits, but it also reduces some of the negative things. People who say, I receive gratitude at work, report lower levels of stress and lower levels of burnout. So, the picture is pretty convincing. I want to share with you one of my own studies that was published a couple of years ago. And this was a group of employees from the education sector and from the finance sector. And I was interested in looking at the degree to which gratitude contributes to job satisfaction. So we all know here that job satisfaction is a key indicator of many of the things that we want to occur in our organisations. Job satisfaction is a pathway to higher levels of productivity. It's a pathway to higher sales figures. It's a pathway to less turnover in the organisation. So we want our employees to feel satisfied. And what I was interested in looking at is, well, what role does gratitude play in job satisfaction? You saw in the earlier stage of my talk Robert Eben's work looking at the link between gratitude and life satisfaction. Gratitude is one of the top 3 predictors of satisfaction in life, and we can improve our life satisfaction by up to 25% simply by increasing our gratitude. So I wanted to explore if that same relationship that's occurring for life satisfaction also comes into the workplace. Is gratitude a predictor of job satisfaction? You can see on the slide above that it is. And it turns out that job satisfaction predicts about 26%. That gratitude predicts about 24%, 25% of a person's job satisfaction. So similar figures that we're getting in life satisfaction, I was seeing in this study of job satisfaction. Again, it's a psychologically potent ingredient. It predicts about 25%, about a quarter of an employee's how satisfied they are with their job comes from the experience of gratitude. So it's the yeast in the bread. It's the thing that breathes life into the workplace. And I looked at 3 different types of gratitude. The first type of gratitude, which in psychology we call dispositional gratitude, it's essentially looking at just how naturally grateful you are. It's a part of your disposition, it's a part of your personality. So that was a key predictor. You know, some people are just naturally more grateful than others. Some people are like Father Christmas, some people are like the Grinch, you know. And we're just naturally that way. Some people are just naturally more grateful, some people not so much. So that was a significant predictor, but I think what was important to the study and what's important to this particular audience are the second 2 types of gratitude, because they are things that you can change within an organisation. You can't change someone's disposition, but you can change the culture of the organisation. So these next 2 components of gratitude, the first one was episodic gratitude. What I mean by that is that there are moments or episodes or events that occur in the workplace that trigger a feeling of gratitude. So, say for example, your boss puts you on an assignment or a project or a committee that you've really wanted to be on. That's an episode at work that would trigger gratitude in you. Say that your team throws a birthday party or a birthday lunch for you. That's an episode at work that would trigger gratitude in you. So to what degree are there things that are occurring at work that are triggering these episodes of gratitude? And the third aspect was what I call cultural gratitude. This was actually work that was directly informed by Kim Cameron, who you've just heard from, who's in the audience with us now. And I took his scale. He was looking at what are some key virtues that occur within a cultural level, at the institutional level. So this isn't about the individual employees themselves noticing and appreciating. It's a scale that looks at to what degree does the broader culture have gratefulness in it. And the survey items from Kim's survey are things like, if I do something, it gets noticed, or people thank each other in this workplace. So it's not about you as the individual and how much gratitude you do or do not have. It's about your perception of whether gratitude is a key part of the culture. And both of those factors were significant predictors of job satisfaction. So the good news from this research is that you can create a culture of gratitude. You can create moments and episodes within the workplace that trigger even the Grinch to feel momentary gratitude. And when you do, it's a significant predictor of their job satisfaction. So that was one study I wanted to share with you. From that study, then I had the sort of question of, okay, well, we can see that Gratitude is a significant predictor of job satisfaction in the same way as it's a significant predictor of life satisfaction. So then my curiosity starts and I think, okay, well, we know that it's important, we know that it's missing. Are there things, pretty simple things, that we can do in the workplace that cultivate gratitude in people at work? So this next study I want to share with you is a study that I did with a sample of school principals. So these are the leading administrators of 27 schools in the state education system in the state where I'm from, which is the state of Victoria in Australia. And what I did was I invited these 27 school principals to engage in two very well-known gratitude practices. The first is a gratitude journal. And so I asked them for a week, just for 1 week, at the end of every day when you come home, please keep a diary of the things that you feel grateful for in your school. Now, this was done in a school, but I believe the results can be the results can be transferred, because a school principal is really just a CEO of a different type of organisation. The school principal has to be in charge of the IT team, the human resources team. They have to be in charge of budget and resources. They have fairly large staff that they have to be in charge of. They have a board that they have to report to, and they have community stakeholders. They have parents and they have the community. And actually, one of the key differences for schools compared to other industries that I've worked in is that they always have the community and the media watching them all of the time. The minute that a school slips up, it's in the newspaper. And yet business can slip up quite regularly, and it really only makes the news when it's like an Enron or something really big. So to be a CEO of a school, to be a school principal, is an exceedingly complex leadership role. And this is why we have a very high levels of burnout in school principals. So I asked them to keep a gratitude diary at the end of every day for a week, come home and think about the things that went well in your school today, and write about the things that you are grateful for in your work. And the second thing that I asked them to do was to write a gratitude letter. This is a well-known gratitude intervention that's been used in lots of positive psychology research. And I asked them to write the letter specifically to one of their staff members. So sit down and think about a staff member who has really helped you and supported you in your role, that you want to acknowledge their value. So these are not complicated, as Kim said to us before. It's not rocket science. These are not complicated things to do. They're just things that maybe we don't do because we don't understand the importance of gratitude. I left those principals alone for a month after they'd done the 2 gratitude practices, and then I asked them to write about what their experience was with gratitude. We had 2,000 word responses from the 27 school leaders. So we had 54,000 words of data to analyse. That's a large data set. We took it through a well-known process in qualitative methodology, a 4-step process. So you should imagine 54,000 words sort of floating around you. And what we do in this process is we see, are there any kind of themes that are popping out from those 54,000 words? And what we found were 4 key themes that these principals who'd gone through these gratitude interventions said to us that there were 4 benefits, or actually 3 benefits and 1 downside that came from the gratitude. So we're going to come back to that earlier research on the downside. Firstly, they said it was a very cathartic experience. It felt like a weight had been lifted from their shoulders, like an emotional release had occurred as a result of incorporating gratitude into their leadership. And I'll give you some direct quotes from some of the principals in a moment around that. The second thing they said was that it expanded their perspective, that normally they would go home every night, and a little bit like I told you I used to do, they would go home thinking about the bad things that had occurred that day, the problems that were still unresolved, the things that they needed to fix. A lot of the principals talked in their written reflections about how their role is really essentially to solve problems. That, you know, if a problem can't get solved at a lower level, it kind of filters its way up to the school principal. So really a big part of a school's principal's role, this is what they were telling me, is that they were saying, you know, I feel like a police officer, a corrections agent, I feel like a firefighter, you know, that all I'm really doing every day is fixing the problems at school. And what the Gratitude Journal did is it broadened their perspective, because instead of just focusing on the problems, because of this exercise, they also had to actively walk around the school during the day and intentionally look for the things that were working well, intentionally look for the good things in the school. So all of them said it was a very powerful exercise in expanding their perspective of the school and of their role. They also talked about how it created a connection to others, that writing that gratitude letter to someone in the staff member was a very important thing for them to do. It created a bond. In fact, many of them went above and beyond that one gratitude letter. They had such a good experience with that one gratitude letter that the majority of the school principals decided to keep that going. One of the school principals decided after the first letter, sat down and wrote a handwritten letter to every single member of the leadership team. So he extended the gratitude practice. Another of the principals decided to incorporate gratitude into his weekly newsletter to the staff. So a sort of mini gratitude letter. And so he'd say, this week I would like to thank staff member, you know, Joe Bloggs for doing X, Y, and Z. One of the staff members decided to have a gratitude award at the end of the month for a staff member. One of the other principals put in place a gratitude postcard system. So she went and bought a whole lot of postcards and she left them with the administrator. And so what she encouraged staff to do was, it shouldn't just always come from the top. If you feel grateful towards one of your peers, another teacher, or the IT staff, or the catering staff, or the groundskeeping staff, if you feel grateful, write it on a postcard, and if you hand it to the administrator, they will find the person's address, and we will send that postcard home to your colleague. So when the colleague gets home, they get a gratitude postcard from a member at work. So they found very creative ways of extending the gratitude letter. The fourth theme wasn't a positive theme. It was a minor theme, but it was big enough. There were enough principals within that group who mentioned that, yeah, you know what, sometimes it's tough to be grateful at work. So going back to that earlier survey, it created maybe a feeling of, they talked about feeling a little bit vulnerable, sharing an emotion with someone else at work when they've got to be the sort of big, strong, rational leader. They talked about the gratitude paradox, that some people they thanked, there was a very good response, and other people they thanked, not so good. You know, and so what they learned from that experience is that you have to customise your gratitude. So some people do want to be publicly thanked and they do want to be recognised in the newsletter. And for other people, they don't want that. They don't want to be in the spotlight. So it's more of just a private, you know, in the hallway, hand on the shoulder, look, I saw what you did and I really appreciate that. More of a private exchange of acknowledgement and value. So I'll let you read some of the words of the principals themselves, and these are straight from the words that they wrote to us. This is in terms of gratitude triggering a feeling of catharsis. And this first quote is particularly beautiful, I think, or the second quote. You know, that for them it was almost a spiritual experience to bring gratitude into the workplace. But definitely this sense of release. And a lot of them talked about how they didn't realise until that moment how they had shut off their emotions, that they go into work and they're purely this rational leader. But gratitude was opening a door for them and allowing to bring more of their emotions into the workplace. And it was a very healing and cathartic experience for them. In terms of perspective, this one principal says, look, I still tackle all the problems, but I do so with the knowledge that most of what is happening in my school is good. And it helps to keep the problems in perspective. It's easy to feel that everything is always going wrong, but gratitude has helped me to be more realistic in how I see my school, both the good and the bad. So this simple practice of gratitude has given more perspective to this school leader. I want to give you a concrete example of what one of the school leaders did in terms of bringing gratitude into her workplace. So yes, she did the 2 formal practices that I asked her to do, but this was the interesting thing about the study. Almost all of those principals, once they'd done the 2 formal activities, decided I want to incorporate gratitude more regularly into my workplace. So this one principal, she went into her school on a Sunday. This cork board that you see here is the staff announcement board. It's in the staff tea room. She took down all of the announcements and she put up the poster gratitude board, and she left a couple of pieces of different paper at the side there. And she put up one note herself. So that little yellow note that you see in the corner, that's the principal's note saying why she feels grateful for this school. The next day at the staff meeting, she didn't mention the gratitude board. She just left it there because she was curious to see what will happen with this initiative. She didn't want to lead it. She didn't, it's a bit of an irony for the leader to say, you will now all feel grateful. She wanted it to be more of an organic process. So she left it there, and over the next 2 weeks, she took photographs of how the gratitude board grew. And she sent me these photographs, so I'm just going to take you through. This is not her mentioning it at all. This is just the staff being attracted to gratitude. So at the end of 2 weeks, she took those down, and now it rotates. And as the board fills up, people add to it, and then it gets taken down, and then it starts again. And it's now just become a deeply embedded part of the culture of this school, the culture of gratitude. I've visited Tech Millennium the last few days, and I've just had an absolutely delightful time learning about the amazing work they're doing in terms of wellbeing and happiness at Tech Millennium for the high school students, for the university students, and also for the staff. A whole host of initiatives that are designed to create a more grateful culture. This particular initiative that I'm showing you, these are what are called the sugar cubes. And so every single staff member has a sugar cube. They have a photograph of themselves that's on an envelope that they put up on a wall. And if other staff members feel grateful to one of their colleagues for something that they've done, they write a little note and they put it inside the envelope. So I love the idea of the sugar cube because it's like you're sweetening someone's day. You're making them feel seen and acknowledged and heard. This was just a wonderful example I saw of bringing gratitude into the workplace at Tech Millennium a couple of days ago. I want to finish off with a final study. And so far what I've done is I've talked to you about feeling gratitude as an individual at work. The more gratitude you feel as an individual in these episodic moments, I ask these principals to actually cultivate gratitude. But what happens if you can be appreciative and feel grateful, not just of people in the workplace, but of the more sort of abstract elements of the workplace itself. So in this particular study, I ran a methodology called appreciative inquiry. Many of you may be familiar with this methodology. It was launched by Professor David Cooperrider, who I know was one of the keynote speakers at this conference a few years ago. But it's essentially a change methodology where we start first by focusing on the strengths in the system. We start first by focusing on the positive things that are occurring in that workplace. And I ran this large appreciative inquiry with a school. Every single member of the school was involved in this appreciative inquiry, over 150 people. It was a one-day summit. So rather than having gratitude as an individual, rather than having gratitude towards another individual, it was about what are we grateful for about the organisation itself. Well, I'm grateful that I get a car park. I'm grateful for the beautiful school ovals. I'm grateful that I have good technology. I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to be professionally developed. So all of the things that the organisation are providing. And you can see here in the slide that before the AI Summit, I measured a whole range of things, including to what degree do the employees feel that they belong to a meaningful culture? How inspired are they at work? How enthusiastic do they feel? How excited, how proud? And we measured those before the AI Summit, measured those immediately after. At the end of the day, of having a day of focusing on what we appreciate about the workplace, these employees said, I feel prouder, I feel more inspired, I feel more excited, I feel more enthusiastic about work. And then I had the opportunity to re-measure that staff 4 months later. And even 4 months later, the staff was saying, as a result of going through this process of noticing and appreciating the good things in my workplace, I still feel more enthused, more proud, more excited about why I work at the school that I do. So that's it for the science, and I just want to finish off on one slide. How do you increase gratitude at work? Well, I've given you a number of different activities already. You can do the gratitude letters. You can do appreciative inquiry, which is the methodology that I just briefly touched on. You can do the gratitude letters and the gratitude journals, which I've walked you through. You can set up peer recognition programs. So again, gratitude doesn't always have to come from the top. These are programs where peers recognise each other for what they're doing and are able to provide some sort of reward as a result of that. Random acts of kindness I love it, and it's a big one that's coming into workplaces now. In my own centre, the Centre for Positive Psychology at the University of Melbourne, we have actually made up random acts of kindness business cards. And we each have them. And so what we're encouraging each other to do is engage in a random act of kindness, something small. So to give you an example, the other day I had a bunch of meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and one of my colleagues noticed that I didn't have lunch because I'd had so many meetings. So she went out and she bought me some lovely lunch and a coffee, and she just I was in an audio link, she just quietly opened up the door and she came and put the lunch beside me. But she also put the random act of kindness card, because the idea is she's done a random act of kindness for me and she passes the card on. So now I have the card and it's my turn to do a random act of kindness for someone else in the workplace. Then I hand the card over to them, and then they take the card and they hand it over to someone else. And finally, starting your meetings with what went well, what's working well. Celebrate the good things and have a sense of gratitude before we focus in on the tasks. So I hope that I have achieved my mission and my aim, which was to spend this time convincing you of the importance of gratitude. I hope that when you leave today, you go back to your workplace and you think, yeah, you know what? This is a really important construct. It's really important that we do this in the workplace. I want to end on another cartoon, and I just want to say to you that don't sit here today and think, yeah, that's great, I'm really going to do that, and then go back to work and sort of forget about it. Don't leave it until it's too late, and I'll let this cartoon explain to you the importance of that. So, muchas gracias. Thank you so much for having me.